going live. Get you time.
Hello and welcome to Talk with Famous People. My name is Westo Enrico. I'm the Westwood, and as a consequence, I'm the one who's beginning the conversation here this evening on the live stream. I wanted to live stream primarily because it's been a little while since I have live streamed, and
8 hours?
No, a few days, and I try to keep up with the various strings I've got established, so to speak. Hi, Fate Wind, you are the first. Yeet. You're the very first viewer, very first shatter. So I try to keep up with the different project strings, live streaming being one of them. Live streaming has its own I think group of people that like the live streams in particular, and that's probably a distinct subpopulation from those who don't. So I want to make sure I need to provide live streaming. And one of the reasons why I wanted to live stream, and I'll probably repeat this later, is I wanted to thank Sheila for this awesome gift that she made for us, which is TWFP Officer Red. Yeah, for her to wear in this lovely letter we received here about the Officer Red and typing her and stuff like that. So I will refer to that again later on, as I want to make sure Sheila, if she makes it to this live stream, that she's around to hear me say that. And it does draw attention to the fact that FE in part is the desire to share your positive feelings about something with that other person. That one of the big differences between, like, say, an INTP or an INTJ and some sort of FE Dom is the desire to share those feelings. So Jonah Dempsey, for example, indicated in a recent video that his feelings, his positivity towards me were represented legitimate feelings. But he doesn't seem to be getting the fact that it doesn't matter if those feelings are legitimate or not. The interest in telling me about them, making sure that I get to experience the positivity of your perceptions, is an FE thing in and of itself. So, I know this in part because what happened right now probably wouldn't have occurred to me to say anything about that, even though I liked it a lot and thought it was really cool. I probably would have just forgot to mention it. But Kim said, well, make sure you thank Sheila for it. And I would have forgotten to mention it, not because I don't value it, not because I don't think it's super cool, but just because that's not where my attentional manner is focused, right? So
fucking rude.
Kimmy.
It is. That letter brought a tear to my eye. Actually, to both.
That's a total of 2 tears. It's pretty good. Yeah. Eric, how does TI Dom manifest in a person's life? Well, it's a deliberation function first. You're going through life assuming the thing you're going to encounter will allow you to deliberate about it and then take some sort of action. A deliberation function is always followed by an action function, which means it has knowledge third and interface fourth. So there's a perception in any deliberation DOM of a lack of need to interface with the system in order to come to conclusions about it. That one can glean information about it sending off to the sidelines without any interfacing with it and have sufficient information to deliberate and draw firm conclusions upon which then to act. So in that regard, a deliberation function in the dominant slot is going to necessitate somebody who doesn't go forward assuming they need to know what's going to happen, because they're always being presented with opportunity to think about and decide over time. Whereas an action type is always forward. They need to know nothing nor deliberate about anything. Need status as you do with deliberation functions. So if you're an action first type, you're going to have deliberation second, which is going to play out a lot differently than a deliberation DOM. And when you're not going to have nearly the comfort level with the other kind of delivery. But functionally, it means testing everything that you encounter in life for argumentational stoutness, for its ability understand scrutiny of TI kind of logic, which is a parsing, a language parsing, and a dismantling kind of logic, a negationary kind of logic in general. So tonight we type policed Dario Nardi, and threw him in type jail, and we type policed Benjamin Chiadik, which he belonged in jail a long time ago. He self-identified as an ISTP, but displays no TI whatsoever. As far as I can tell, an ISFP could possibly be an ESFP, but seems to have a hint of TI here and there that would suggest ISFP instead, rather than polar. He doesn't really seem polar TI. He seems 8-slotted in an ISFP, which is, you know, it's going to manifest mostly as a physical kind of TI. That's to say, checking for consistency among nonverbal cues, probably more, I guess. I'm not sure. That's one that continues to give me trouble. Physical aspect of TI. So, anyway, as indicated on live stream tonight, mostly out of a sense of it being a while since I've live streamed, high Angan tier, and wanting to make sure I keep up that manner of interaction with the viewing audience. Things are going pretty well in general. The channel views are starting to dip a little bit, perhaps from peaks when I was doing a lot more type police, and certain videos obviously do a lot better than others. But the amount of interest in the typing service has increased, and that's a nice additional revenue stream, which we need, and it's helpful. So that's a sign of channel growth that's very gratifying, because I like to think of it as being basically merit-based. I mean, having people who've been typed by DSP, who've been typed CS Joseph, and aren't satisfied, and they come to me.
In my industry, we call it cleaning up the mistakes.
Kimberly's a hairdresser, in case you don't know. Andrew Claypool asks an interesting question. What types are most likely to not understand where TI and any users are coming from? I would suggest it's going to be ENTJs, especially. And the reason is they're gonna appreciate TI DOMs more than TI tool users probably. ENTJ will, and they're going to validate those people, but they're going to understand them not very well at all, because the NI, whereas the function of an ENTP is very negationary and parsing. Now, the ENTJ will validate the other person on a pass-fail level on TI. So I will validate on that level, necessary but insufficient level with an ENTJ, as will my modalities, so long as I don't include too much NE. Because if I include too much NE, then I'm again moving away from that singularity. So there's multiple factors working against an understanding of any TI users by ENTJs, that it doesn't work the other way around either. NTPs can better understand NTJs than the other way around, especially, I think, ENTPs. And the reason is, it's having the knowing functions in the 4-5. So ENTPs have an intimate relationship with SI as a delegatory function, and an active relationship with NI as the flip side of their identity. And that means that we can understand knowing through either modality pretty effectively. Whereas ENTJ, as SI polar, they cannot understand SI at all, and they dismiss all SI modalities. So if you look at DSP's approach, he goes, well, let's make this objective in its processes. Let's make this precise but not accurate. And that's consistent with an SI polar quality. To deny that there's an experiential quality to figuring this out, like, for example, experience. So I've typed a lot of people now, and I've gotten very, very good at it, and I've learned to relate certain kinds of answers to certain kinds of questions as indicative of perhaps being misleading in their literal meanings, or perhaps not being misleading, for example. Those sort of meta-analyses that come with practice as a typologist are indispensable in accurately typing somebody. But Dave Superpowers is trying to excise all of that from the equivalent of thing. So that's a good example of polar SI not being able to understand the NETI process.
Hi, Zandy.
Hi, Zandy. Just think about it. Sharon says, I'm taking a guess that you agree that intuition is the starting point for sensing. Sensing is the starting point for intuition. Thinking is the starting point for feeling, and vice versa. No, I'm not even sure what that would mean. Good evening, everyone, says Zandy, and I echo her salutations. In Japan, they have silent hair salons where the client doesn't have to talk to the stylist and vice versa. Oh, that's nice. Well,
What is it?
Silent hair salons in Japan, where the rule is neither the stylist talks to the patient or the client, or the client talks to the stylist.
I think that would piss my clients off. I would love it.
What makes a great human being? Someone who just focuses on their thinking, someone who just focuses on their feeling, someone who's balanced with both feeling and thinking when making decisions. Well, I think that a great human being is somebody who doesn't transgress, for one thing. There's two aspects to being a good human being. There's the negative ethical obligation, which says I'm not going to transgress and violate the rights of other people. That's a thinking-based obligation. There's an additional affirmative obligation that says I'm going to do better than just not violate people's rights in some capacity. I'm going to be loyal. I'm going to be trustworthy. I'm going to, there are ways you can violate trust that aren't rights violating, but you still have a moral prohibition against them if you're a decent person. And it's based on a positive moral indication that may be rooted in feelings to some extent. But the thing about that is it's a mistake to think things and thinking are the two elements there to consider.
Apparently you're lagging.
So, well, sometimes that's actually the person who says that. So, but it might be the case here. I don't know. I guess the point I'm saying is it's better to say because people make decisions with more than just their judging functions. This is a mistake to think that that's the case. The decision-making process includes an implicit value, that is to say, whether or not something qualifies as even worth your attention in the first place, an instrumental value, how you want to approach it, and whether or not the situation allows you to use your tool function to deal with it, the absolute value, whether or not a situation is going to actually pay you in something that makes you feel good, a delegatory value, whether or not you can hand off aspects of the attentional responsibility to somebody else, ignoring it's a validation of externals. So your fifth slot will tell you successes or fails, a more accurate understanding of the relationship between the functions in terms of making decisions. Making decisions is a complicated matter that comprises several different kinds of legitimization. So it's reductive to say that it's a thinking or a feeling thing. It's a combination of your whole configural alignment as to decision making. A question to differentiate INFJ from INTP. Well, I mean, you're never going to be able to differentiate them with a question. You're going to be able to rely on a question's answer to mean what it apparently means. You'll always have to interface successfully with the individual and pull out the processes you're looking to differentiate from each other. Okay, if I ask this kind of question, this kind of answer typically means this process and not that process. But I got to make sure, because sometimes people interpret my words, the words of the question, differently than they're intended. And it's very difficult to write a question that everybody's going to interpret the same way that's also meaningful in drawing distinctions. That's why we can't rely on a test. We have to rely on the interactive process and the expertise of the person doing the typing, which ideally could be verified with brain scans. But even if it's not verified with that, it can be verified in other ways. What are you doing?
You'll see.
I don't get why so many try to make it a war between thinkers and feelers. Well, it just happens. Hey, Eric. I'm in Costa Rica at the moment and have no weed. I'd appreciate a transubstantiated bong rip when convenient. That's absolutely, it's convenient right now. Thank you, Kim. You were wise to interrupt me to draw attention to that.
I had to warm this bitch up.
If one of the people is in need of by a transubstantiation, then that's going to be my priority. I'm here to make sure the viewers don't suffer.
In fact, let me go get Juan Pablo.
All right, bring Juan Pablo in here. He'll pull longer for you too there, horse mumbler. Okay. I mean, the thing is, when different people make better decisions when they utilize their functions in a certain configuration. It is not the case that when I use my introverted feeling, if I'm using my introverted feeling, probably my feelings are hurt or I'm mad or something like that. And I can't evaluate those things via a useful attentional channel. In other words, my emotions don't tell me things that are useful to otherwise obvious, and if they appear to, I shouldn't listen to them. So that doesn't mean I incorporate extroverted feeling, and that's a feeling. It's the other side of TE, really, in the sense that FE is an interface attentional manner that deals with the representations of things, not things in themselves. So it's not really your feelings, it's relational mechanics in a social system. I do transcendental. Well, I also use my interface function to translate that into Costa Rican Spanish for you, horse motor, for in case they get any trouble at the border with it. Hi, Sheila. Oh, Sheila's here. Good. I want to do my little thing again here, a little story. So we got something in the mail today that Kimberly said brought a tear to each of her two eyes for a total of 2 tears. And it is this extremely adorable.
Thank you so much. We love it.
Uniform for Officer Red. You see that? And
it's actually called a
and this lovely handwritten letter. And Kimberly was in ISFJ heaven.
Yes.
I think it's adorable too.
Yeah,
I'm not above adorability.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That means
I'm gonna wear it as a cod piece, actually. Just strap this right around each I guess each ball. Yeah, I don't know how I'd wear this as a cod piece, but anyway. I don't know if
it's big enough
though. Thank you very much, Sheila. We appreciate that. That was great.
So sweet.
Okay, so let's see what else we got going on here. Hey, Jen, the INFP, chaotically minimal. So you say via the implicit value that someone who isn't able to use their first function, they avoid it. What if they can't avoid it? E.g., does a TE DOM go into FI or whatever their second function is? Well, let me give you an example. I worked for a week one time at a temp job at a leather factory where I was tasked with scraping off specks of ink or dye that was used to dye the leather with a dime, okay, for part of my workday. And the part of my workday, I'd lift these things and put them up on things. It was mindless manual labor. While I was working at that, I was trying, because I see there's it all. I was trying to compose a poem in my head the whole time, but I couldn't keep track of the whole thing for that many hours without losing big pieces of it and stuff. There's no way to keep track of it all. It got very frustrating. By the end of the week, it's like if there had been one more day, I would have said, I'm not going back. I'm sorry. I just cannot tolerate it. It's intolerable. And the answer is you won't tolerate it for very long. You'll just have to leave. It was the most NE oppressive job I'd ever been in or ever will be in. So what do? Well, I stuck with my dominant function and tried to make up poems while doing this job, only to lose them all because my SCI is not that good. And what would somebody else do if, like, let's say they can't use their TE? Well, they'll probably TE about the thing they can't use their TE on until they realize the futility of it and run away. Hi, the introverted thinker. Signs that someone's an INTP. I mean, you can talk about plenty of displays that are correlations. but that's not going to really tell you anything. You got to evaluate things in context. So it's easy enough to check the TI. We can check the TI with conditional logic problems, but it's only going to narrow you down to the first 2 slots probably, and it may even include some strong third slot users that are going to pass that test with flying colors. So it's hard to say. I mean, you just got to pay attention to what the functions are and see if that lines up. It'll be in the values. It'll be third slot absolute value of SI. They'll want to construct stories about themselves that comprise a succession of meaningful events or something like that. So Fate Wind asks, if economic systems were cognitive functions, capitalism would be thinking and socialism would be feeling. Leaning too heavy on one side would be bad. Balancing the two is better. Would you agree? No, I wouldn't agree at all. First of all, economic systems aren't cognitive functions. Economic systems are the naturally occurring form of engagement with people, between people, which is commerce. So social economic system in that it used to prevent the naturally occurring commerce between peoples. But capitalism is the absence of a social system when it works best. That is to say, to the extent there's any system at all, it only supports the integrity of the free market. It doesn't restrict it. So there's a fundamental difference between the two things we're talking about. One is a form of oppression and one is a form of liberty. And so there's no balancing the two. It's not like saying, well, look, you say rape anybody anytime and it's fine, and I say, no, it's awful to rape people, you shouldn't do it at all, so let's split the difference. No, let's not split the difference. No, that's Fate Wind. Utilitarianism, is that not thinking? Even if the goal is maximize happiness? I mean, it's a form of introverted thinking in the sense that it's an argumentation block that you can make. It doesn't withstand very good TI scrutiny. It withstands a little bit, depending on how you're arguing it. But it typically represents the position that extroverted thinkers are attracted to because fundamental to their nature, if they're using extroverted thinking as their dominant function at least, is going to be a prioritization of utility.
Introverted thinkers in that, Susie?
I don't think so. Oh. It could be, though. I don't know. What does it mean if I'm good at tedious tasks? Because it allows my mind to roam and flow. I used to hand tie wigs, drum strand for a living. I loved it because it let me think completely. It would suggest that you perhaps have SE in the third slot, which finds it satisfying to do, and that in and of itself doing provides you satisfaction. And maybe that's the manner in which it provides you satisfaction. That would be one thought. I was just having fun with the idea. I just thought it sounded neat. Well, I mean, one could make the argument, and it would be, it's an analogy. It's an NFP analogy. It doesn't need to withstand TI scrutiny. It's just a neat idea. It is. It's a neat sort of analogy or analogous connection that you make, but it doesn't withstand TI scrutiny. You're welcome, Horse Mumbler. That was a nice indica you got there called Stuck on Stupid with 2 O's instead of a U to spell it. Regardless, the question is, why does she choose to engage in that repetitious muscle memory task? And the answer would be, that's enjoying SE being followed through on something already decided. So, okay, Renlin asks, Eric, if you use a soccer question to check for polar TI, then how would you check for dominant TI? Well, I asked the real hat question, and if the person heard of how they approach it and whether they get it right, if they do get that right pretty quick and explain it a certain way, that would be indicative of first or second slot TI for sure, probably first slot. It would take me a little longer to figure that out than a TI down, probably. And the real hat question is, there are 5 hats in a bag, 3 prisoners. There are 3 red hats and 2 white hats. The third guy is blind. The first guy is blindfolded such that he can only see the other guy's hats, not his own. And is told if he gets right the color of his own hat, he can go free. If If he gets wrong the color of his own hat, he's put to death. And if he says he can't answer it, then he goes back to normal. The first guy, his blindfold's taken off, and he says, I can't tell what color hat I have. Then the second guy's blindfold is taken off, and he also says, I can't tell what color hat I have. Then the third guy, who's blind, says, I don't need to see anything. I can tell you what color hat I have. And he tells the warden and is set free. And then the question is, how and why does the blind guy know what color hat he has and what's the color? If you're a TI Dom, you'll probably figure out that question. You'll be able to figure it out eventually, and you'll probably figure it out faster than me. Dominate introverted thinkers have this pause start to them when they're speaking. This is due to them always checking with the TI to make sure they're clarifying. That's a good observation, as too. I think that's probably true. I think they'd be in bursts like an ENTP, but there'd probably be bigger pauses and fewer and less lengthy stretches of talking. Yeah, I have no boring jobs like that. Requires no SE, in my opinion. I've had boring jobs like that. Requires no SE, in my opinion. Well, if you really are an introverted thinker, then you don't understand what SE is, so that would make sense. The best ever asks, do you own any firearms? Kimberly's going to show you a couple of our firearms. She brought them. We've got these guns that shoot salts to kill flies.
These are our assault rifles.
Yeah, they're salt rifles.
No, yeah. Don't mess with us.
Yeah, Susie, you don't know anything about SE.
Don't mess with us at the Strauss house. You'll get a whooping. You'll get an assault rifle whooping. You hear that?
Well, Melanie Paul, if you enjoy tedious tasks, I would ask you, what kind of tedious tasks do you enjoy? If they're SI tasks, then it's not the tedium it's not the doing of it you enjoy, it's the SI part you enjoy, because that's your third slot. So if you enjoy tedious tasks, quote unquote, like cleaning up and stuff, that's a non-creative tedious task. But it's an SI task. Then it would make sense that would be gratifying to you with SI in the third slot. What she's talking about are creative tedious tasks that are doing or creating something, an impact of something, not ideationally fresh.
Hi, Susie.
The best ever items, let me just clarify that. I do not own any real firearms. Don't plan on getting any. I don't have any great desire to have a gun. I've fired guns on a couple of occasions in the past.
Let's change the subject.
And I support people's right to own guns, but I don't personally, at the moment, have any plans on getting one, although those plans might change at some point. But I don't see any compelling reason to. If I felt I had a good reason to have a gun, like I was threatened or something, then I would probably consider getting one. I don't think it's the task that's necessarily enjoyable. I think it's more enjoyable that it runs autopilot, which makes time fly and you're free to think about stuff. Well, in that regard, a certain SE quality to it, but if it's really running entirely autopilot, then pretty low grade of SE that allows you to do that much thinking. Kimberly left shortly before you put that introverted thinker, Susie. Why is you just can't hide. Chrism A, it's ya boy. Hey, it's your boy. Are you Italian? Is that Italian sounding talk or what? Maybe I'm influenced a lot by my ISFP mom. Yeah. So I notice any users have especially high, any user need glasses. Have you? If so, why? Well, I need glasses a little bit now for reading small fine print because those the lenses in the eyes that can go smaller and bigger to adjust to the size of the thing you're looking at, those wear out over time. Eyes, but my eyes are actually quite good for 47. I don't need glasses normally under normal circumstances, and in fact, everything's crystal clear. There's no, it's just reading fine print that gives me a little bit of difficulty. So that's not been my experience, but I may deviate from the norm. It's not something I've even thought about before. Let's see. Sup, babe? You watch my interview. Thanks, you the best. You say at Joey. Oh, that's Joey Joe Shavit. What does it mean if I get unreasonably frustrated with minor inconveniences like my shoelace is getting stuck on something, or my headphones getting pulled out of the slot, or my way getting blocked? Is that SE? Well, I think, let me start by telling you, when I'm experiencing that, it means I'm not getting enough sleep and I'm easily frustrated. It's called low frustration tolerance in general. And it's true that I suspect backside SE people are more frustrated by SE style inconveniences like that. That exact thing happens to me as I'm getting really frustrated when I'm not getting enough sleep. So it may just be not getting enough sleep, but it's likely also that you're intuitive if the SE stuff you find particularly inconvenient rather than the metaphysical stuff. Hey, Eric, says Diznazo431. Can you give a few telling examples of seventh slot SE? That one's a tough one to draw out verbally because it's the most non-verbal of all the functions. I mean, you might say FI is, I'd say FE, SE is even more so. The real questions you can ask to draw out seventh slot SE, well, I don't know. I don't have an answer to that question. I don't ever. That's not something I try to draw out. I have certain strategies I use when I'm typing people, and so it's like I'll try to nail down the epistemology first. What's their knowledge function, SI or NI? That one tends to be the easiest to nail down because if it's in a dramatic spot, for example, if SI is in the seventh or if NI is in the seventh, although I don't encounter many STJs, ESTJ, or what else has NI seventh? ISTJ. No, wait. ESTJ or what was it? SI second. Oh, ESFJ. I don't encounter a lot of ESFJs or ESTJs, which we have NI polar. But SI polar is really easy to tell. And it's also SI eighth I've gotten pretty good at telling from INTJs and INFJs. Also, if you got SI fourth, then it's really interesting because it's pretty easy to spot that in a way. They talk about ideas all the time with an NI flavor, but when you ask them about the past, they access SI. So it's a much more balanced usage. That one I have a really good, clear grasp on how to draw it out. I have the weakest grasp on how to draw out FI and the second weakest grasp probably on how to draw out SE. So instead of looking for FI, I look for TI and see how I look for TI, or I look for FI style argumentation rather than the FI itself. And I look for TE or TI, and that's going to determine whether they have FI. And I look for FE and TI, in which case they'll, depending if they don't, then they have FI. It's always the thing that I deduce rather than the thing I'm using to deduce. Go on the stream and let host Eric type you. I don't know if I can even. Is it possible to invite somebody else to be on camera in this stream? Now, particularly challenging case, I'm not necessarily unwilling to type them for free on camera, but I don't think I'm going to be it's not going to be a typical typing in the sense that usually I feel quite confident about a person's type after a fairly short period of time. I have a feeling Curtis is going to be a little bit more challenging than that because I'm not sure the extent to which he's gaming his responses. And that provides an added thread of challenge because it's obviously a lot easier if you feel confident the person is being earnest in their attempt to be honest with you. I don't care if they self-deceive or not. That's my job, is to be able to pick through that shit. To be able to see those self-deceptions, if they, instead of calling them that, see them as expressions of a function bias, for example, makes them useful in typing a person rather than contraindicative of their actual type. So C.S. Joseph typed Brian Griffin from Family Guy as an INFJ, so I agree with your statement to CCism. Well, I don't believe really in typing characters or people, famous people, celebrities, because unless I talk to them, there's a necessary engagement with people's answers in order to figure out what their answers actually mean rather than what they say. It's very easy to look at an answer and say, well, this is what the answer says, but you often have to ask further follow-up questions to find out if it means what it appears it means. I got my plow truck stuck tonight and spent 45 minutes trying to get her out before I gave up, but I hate the fact that I didn't get her unstuck. I hate giving up and not being successful. Well, Sheila, you've got a little handicap. You know what it is? It's a little something called polar TE. That's right. Getting a snow plow unstuck from the snow, which is a great story, by the way. Getting your snow plow stuck in the snow is very rural of you. I like that. You have an enviably rural life, Sheila W. Everyone wants to get down and rural like that.
I want to rural in her hay.
Yeah, polar living, move south. Well said, Cosmic Pentastar.
I want to roll around in her hay.
Everyone thinks I'm gaming the system. I have no idea where that came from, lol. It's bizarre. I think you spelled bizarre wrong. You're talking about the kind of bizarre where they sell Arabian meats instead of the kind of bizarre where it's strange. Curtis, spelling faux pas. Everybody taunt Curtis for his spelling faux pas. Curtis, you misspelled bizarre.
B-A-Z-A-A-R.
Is it difficult to type someone who has been through childhood trauma?
No, he typed me in 2 seconds.
Not necessarily. Because the thing is, most childhood trauma is going to display in some circumstances and not others. So, for example, if I ask Kimberly questions about whether she's making objective self-criticisms, she's not going to reveal much TI to me. But if I ask her questions about which she doesn't have any ego link, so to speak, then she'll demonstrate the TI. So usually I'm not looking for TI to be demonstrated via objective self-criticism, because that's a more developed form of TI, and I think it's an aspect of TI that develops over time and with personal growth. Whereas utilizing it as a default mechanism of parsing out shit about the world that's not linked to you, that's more revelatory about whether or not they're using TI or not. So in that regard, I tweak certain kinds of vector matter, and I can usually account for those things. It's a question I'd ask if I started getting some weird discrepancies, probably. Like, well, do you consider your childhood abusive? Correct. I did think she was ESFJ to begin with. So 2 seconds metaphorically, which is to say about a week. Okay. It took me about a week to change from ESFJ to ISFJ. And it was a reasonable mistake to make. At the beginning of dating somebody, she's going to be inner tool function a lot. and using a lot of FE. And so I thought she was extroverted at first.
My license plate said ESFJ.
That's true. Her license plate said ESFJ, incidentally. God, it's rough watching you smoke. I quit a couple weeks ago and have been doing good, but damn, I want me a cool triggered hashtag. What do you mean pound triggered? Or perhaps number sign triggered? I got these CSJ dudes in my comment section saying I'm ESTP. And we know they can't be right. Well, blind squirrels, Chris, blind squirrels, okay? Sometimes they can be right. And in this case, they very well might be right. I have not typed you formally yet, but I will admit I currently am leaning ESTP myself. You do a lot of NE for an ISTJ. And it's more consistent, the kind of NE you do and the frequency with which you do it and the dewiness of you to think that you're an action type.
Who are you talking to?
Curtis.
Oh.
He's got a dewiness to you. You've got a dewiness quality.
You should actually write a song about Curtis and his dewiness.
Right. And I'm not talking about the damp kind of dew. I'm talking about the get shit done kind of dew.
Will you write a song about him and his dewiness?
I'll try. Curtis and his dewiness. You know, Curtis and the Dewiness Express can be the name of his hypothetical band that he plays in. The story of which I tell in that song.
I really, really, really want you to write a song about Curtis and his dewiness.
Okay, I'll try to do that. Well, sometimes it's not the typing system that's wrong, it's the person typing. And that's fine. I acknowledge that I am susceptible to being wrong about typing. My point is, let's agree upon the metric that can be used to establish that I'm wrong. So I've got a lot of good justifications for using the metric that I'm using and the understanding of function that I'm using. So if in fact we're using the same understanding of functions and I'm wrong, then you should be able to use that understanding of functions that I'm utilizing against me to prove that there are contradictions within my stated understanding of things and my conclusion. And there might be, but that's what I would say would be the methodology to contradict that. Because there's a reason to choose a certain definition of functions over another. First of all, a definition of functions should include the fact that function itself has a definition that makes it distinct from other kinds of cognition. That a cognition like wanting to get some cheese is an example of a function, perhaps, or example manifestation of a function, but is not the function itself. It's an example manifestation of FI, perhaps, but it doesn't qualify as a function or sub-function or anything like that. There's not the cheese-loving subtype of FI Dom. I'm impressed, Curtis. I'm very impressed that you're familiar with the Aelorian hymn book. Okay, that gets you a lot of fucking points in my book.
I told you need to write a song about him and his dewiness.
That you may well provoke a song from me, Curtis. It may involve your dewiness.
I know a way you can get everyone in this live stream to listen to it. You can use all of their names in the song. It's like your favorite thing to do is use people's names. Okay,
let me go back up to Matthias Sanchez. Hopefully you're still here because I want to read this and I missed it. Do you get a better grasp on one type's person by their relationship to power? And when it is most easy to deduce in a man or woman? No, I don't really look at their relationship with power, although they typically reveal that. I don't concretely try to pull it out. They may reveal whether aristocratic or democratic in their relationship to hierarchy, and that may be indicative of something. But there are other things that come before that that I would identify that would make that ancillary.
We do, however, look at the nut jobs of the world and quickly type them as ESFP.
And when it is most easy to deduce a man or woman, the same. I did a man today. He was a tough client in the sense that he came in ready to do battle with anything that I I argued and ready to challenge everything, which was fine. I'm happy to be challenged like that. I had the answers for things. When I was describing SI for him, for example, I said, well, as an SI polar person, you probably either go a whole bunch and then crash, or have a very regimented schedule where you go to bed at the same time every night. One of those two ways of compensating for your, well, the first way is not a way of compensating. It's a way of just living out your SI polar. The second way is a way of compensating. He said, well, I don't resonate with either of those things. And I said, okay, well, then in this case, you're going to read those type descriptions and say, I'm not like ENTJs. But remember, the reality is SI polar means you are not attending to managing managing and archiving your existing resources from the past, including ideas, including your physical resources. That's to say, your energies and your physical well-being and stuff like that. So how that actually manifests in your schedule is it varies substantially from the type description. It doesn't matter as long as it fits the cognitive function description I just told you. If your behavior matches that of one who's not attending to already known resources, including your physical resources, and how well those resources are going to, how you can utilize those existing resources, including your past experiences and how well you remember those things and stuff like that. For example, this guy, I'd ask him about the past. He couldn't give me any kind of specific answer at all. It would just be like, well, my past, I was like this, and give some sort of general vague answer. And even then, he'd kind of like be befuddled by the question and answer a different question. Like he didn't guess SI at all. It was pretty obvious he was an SI polar user. And so I can explain to him, look, this is what the cognitive function is. The type description may mislead you because it's assuming people are displaying the most common correlate with the functions as they are, the most common behavioral manifestation. But the key thing is, does your behavior manifestation source from this reason and this attentional manner? If it does, it doesn't matter how it displays. It's the attentional manner that matters. It's not the display. Okay. I had dissociative amnesia surrounding childhood trauma until age 29, and I was equally INFP cray before and after Chapman's memories. Okay, well, I don't know anything about that. You said in the past that with trauma, your first and fourth can be permanently flipped. So could a traumatized ENTP's function stack be SITIFENE? If I said that in the past, I disavow that statement. I don't know if that's the case at all. I think it's unlikely. I guess it's in theory possible the trauma were bad enough, but I would say that I have no reason to think that except just random musings. So I would backtrack from that statement or concede defeat upon it that I don't make that affirmation anymore. But I think in the short-term aftermath of a trauma, it's SITIFENE, maybe, but even more so, it's really SI with involuntary unconscious functions like FI erupting. And then your FI is automatically going to transition into your SI if you're 4th slot SI, 7th slot FI. When you get an overload of your 7th slot, it turns into your 4th slot. So if you're polar SI, then your SI problems overload and turn into FI. They just turn into FI issues. If you're polar FI, your FI overload turns into SI issues. I get tired and need to go to sleep and wait for the emotion to pass, and it will. So that's about that. I was speaking of you specifically, however, you're right. So come to understand that typing is like practicing a sport. You're going to get your ass kicked for a while before you become good. That's true. That's true. And you will become good with practice and experience, especially if you're an SI type. Now, if you're an NI type like DSP, you might try to regulate out the SI from the equation entirely and say, well, let's not have any particularist experience involved. That makes it more objective. Except it doesn't more objective. It just makes it more regimenous. Let's see. There are 16 types, Curtis, and ISTJ is not yours. Thank you. Find them Dewey. Dewey in the D-E-W-Y sense, not in the D-O-E-Y sense. I did a man today, host Eric. I did say that, yes. I guess I could use the verb typed.
Yeah, you a little penisy.
Yeah, that's a little penisy for me. Curtis, you have intense eyes. They remind me of SE. Note that, Curtis, another SE voter. My son just made me banana pancakes, so I'm awesome. Thank you. How are you doing? Well, you know what? If you were really awesome, your son would have made me some banana pancakes too. Then you would be a really, really good mother. Hi, Shark Game. Shark Games Gaming and other videos. This is my neighbor. Are you my neighbor? Shark Games Gaming and other videos?
What?
I think that's
who?
Brian's kid.
Where? What?
What's his name?
Colby.
Colby.
In here?
Yeah, I think Shark Games Gaming and other videos is Colby from next door.
What's his name?
I don't know. I'm asking him if it's him.
Oh, it is.
Oh, nice. Never had those before. I'm good. Got a puppy, super bitey, but super cute. You never had those before. SE Doms that had that pounce look, ready to pounce. Oh, you've never had the ready to pounce look, or you've never had the banana pancakes? Probably the banana pancakes. You've never had puppy pancakes? Well, puppy pancakes are one of the meatier varieties of pancakes. It's better to harvest dead puppy meat from puppies who died of natural causes, or else you might get some protesters at your puppy pancake party.
Hi, Colby. How are you? Hi, Shark Games. How are you?
If you are able to, when the puppy bites, pinch his up quickly, the mama dog would put her in her place. Your flicker nose. You typed police to Dario Nardi today. How in the world someone who's considered a bigwig in the typology world would get his own type wrong? Is it due to high FI? Another example, that Brittany girl? Well, I mean, I would say the reason Dario Nardi got it wrong is probably high TI. It could be an FI Dom, but he's got a lot of TI in the mix, it seems to me. I suspect he's when an I, which is, first of all, they tend to be more uncertain about their type than they need to be because they're so TI deliberative negationary. They're going to negate everything even in their own type. In this instance, he's decided on iron type police.
You should promote Colby's channel.
He says, yes, I'm the one who gets the mail. So Short Games Gaming is behind me here, who comes and gets the mail sometimes because our mailboxes are both up at the front. That's funny that this is not the first time he's been on the live stream either. That's hilarious.
Promote his channel. So everybody, tell your kids to his channel. He's a pretty cool kid.
Yeah, he is, and I'm sure his channel is great. I'll have to check it out.
He's trying to gain some subscribers for his channel, and
anyway, the question about Dario Nardi, I think Dario Nardi will end up seeing my video. Probably, and I think he's going to end up agreeing with me. That's what I think.
Good job, Mr. Sharky.
Regulus, how does aristocracy fit into the quadras? Is beta right? And what are other classifications and their comparisons? Well, I don't like aristocracy because aristocracy is in particular a component of FE prioritization over TI concerns in a way that I think the alpha quadrant doesn't do. So, I mean, obviously ESFJs do, ISFJs do, they put FE first over TI, but it's in a different fashion. So the NI combination causes people to go, well, look, these hierarchies are extant and they matter even if they're not egalitarian or fair equality based because they represent real merit differences. The reason that person is whatever is because he's more successful, and better, and as a consequence, we ought to listen to him more. Whereas with Alpha Quadra, with the prioritization so much on talking rather than doing, and this I think probably links to that more than anything else. The SE in the Beta Quadra says, well, we have to actually make decisions. And the Alpha Quadra goes, no, we just talk about it forever and never actually make decisions. So for that reason, we should never really consider practical matters like hierarchy. We should just consider the ideas on their merits and take as long as we want to deliberate about them, because we're not actually going to take any real action on them. We're just going to talk more about them. So
now we have another short intermission. This is Kimberly here. I'd like to also give a shout out to our friend Curtis. Please check out Curtis's channel and subscribe today.
That's some good FE there, Kim. She's like the FE police. A lot has changed, but we've been divorced and remarried now 7 times. It's a good country song there, Angantier. A lot has changed, but we're repeating history. We've been divorced and remarried now 7 times. Those are good country music lyrics.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know you were a country music writer, Angantier. I had thought my MIL, mother-in-law, is an ESFJ, and after you said they love all those positive affirmation signs and memes, she posts that stuff all the time, and I had to laugh. Yeah, it's probably an SFJ, one of the 2 SFJs. ESFJs, it depends on the context. Are ESFJs louder than ENFJs? In general, I would say no. ESFJs are more satisfied with small FE, and so unless somebody pushes up on their territory too hard, they're probably going to be they're not going to need to be quite so low. They'll periodically go, everybody, attention, please, okay, just for 1 second. It's got a quick announcement. And then thank you so much and have fun.
But why, if I'm so much like them, do I sit there in the chair and roll my eyes when that person stands up?
Because you don't have polar NI, you got H slot. That's your roll function kicking in to support your SI.
I want to, I can tell them to turn around and sit down and let us just have the party, and we don't need the kindergarten teacher up at the front of the party.
So let's see. INFP and Enneagram type 8 possible? Yes, for sure. It is. Briefly dated a 486 probably. Maybe a 487. But difficult. Difficult person to deal with. Very difficult. A lot of zesty anger in there. The sides have switched, but the results are the same. Well, that's a good additional lyric to it, Angantier. So let's see what we got so far. We've got a lot of change, but we're repeating history. Been divorced and remarried now 7 times. The sides have switched, but okay, it's not going to rhyme. So let's type it out so we make sure we have it here. All right, we're going to write this song, and then I'll write a musical part to it probably. Although I've been tasked with writing a song about Curtis first, so I mean, who knows what's going to take priority? It's a tough call. All right, so a lot of change, but we're repeating history. Been divorced and remarried now 7 times. And then sides have switched. Sides have switched, What rhymes with history? Sides have switched, and now our love's a mystery.
Curtis. Say something about Curtis in there.
No.
Two separate songs.
You're only happy. You're only love me when we're doing lines. You only love me when we're doing lines.
No, you just ruined it.
Okay.
Crime. Doing crimes. That's better than doing lines.
Too many syllables. All right, so here are the lyrics of this. This important song. I want us all to be aware of it. A lot. Let's see. Where is it? A lot has changed, but we're repeating history. Been divorced and remarried now 7 times. The sides have switched, and now our love's a mystery. You only love me when we're doing crimes. It's good. No, Kim, that's a good stanza for a country song right there. Now we gotta come up with it. I'll have to come up with.
I don't like doing crimes.
How
about committing crimes?
Your love for me is the worst of all your crimes. How about that?
Okay.
Your love for me's the worst of all your crimes. It should be like that. Spelled C-R-I-Y-A-M-E-S. Crimes. Okay, let's see. Okay, I thought about this question a lot, Mateus Sanchez, and I gotta say it's a great question. Again, like your last question, I'm glad I noticed it here, and I'm going to be able to answer it. And I'll get to yours in a second, Cosmic Pinstar.
Mateus, you're getting the award for great questions of the evening.
How does your constant interaction with others, trying to keep in mind the functioning of the system, affect your deliberation? Affect your, I think you mean, how does it affect your deliberation? Does one can do anything to progress in some way? Okay, so the thing is, I've thought about this question a lot. I appear to be continually interfacing, but note this. I much prefer this kind of interface than interfacing with more than one other person, especially if I have like 2 people on camera who can talk as well. In this context, I can dominate the talking and the reading of the question because I'm allowed to address every question in full, and deliberation is as fast as the rate of speech, or faster if you're a deliberation dom. You're never going to outpace the TI with the listening capacity of the audience. So you'll always be able to think faster than they can understand spoken language, because the ability to understand spoken language is slower than the ability to execute attention in your well-practiced and dominant or tool manner. So I ride around in my 4-wheeler. I ride in my 4-wheeler envisioning your eyes, or remembering your eyes.
Remembrance in your eyes. In my eyes. With remembrance in my eyes.
It's a little stilted. I think remembering your eyes is better.
Oh, remembering your eyes. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. It's a good point though, Zandy. I cruise, or I roll, or I ride. Take a ride in my 4-wheeler. How about dually? Take a ride in my old dually.
D-U-E-L-L-Y.
D-U-E-L-L-Y. My old dually, remembering.
Of course, Eric just learned what a dually was last week.
Your eyes. Well, that's SI for you. That's taking advantage of my existing resources, especially the new ones.
Shit, I was
driving dualies when I was 16, backing up the horse trailer and all.
Take a ride in my old dually, remembering your eyes. Do you think sometimes pays more attention to their third function than their second? No, definitely they do not. If they did, then their third function would be their second. That's a good suggestion, Joseph House. Write a country song and use your blowtorch or lighter as a slide or the slide guitar part of an open G. Good suggestion. Thank you for that. TJ Music 24 is here. Hey, with 3 E's and 3 Y's. That's triple the hey minus 2 H's. Okay. Mommy, I got these thoughts in my DMs. What are your DMs? Your direct messages? Come quick. Thanks, Shark Games. Appreciate it. Hey, Zandy, how's my twin tonight? Well, you and she comprise a dually. For those of you who don't know what a dually is, they're the kind of pickup truck that's got 2 back wheels on them. You seen those before? Those are called dualies. What about the third first function loop? I don't know what that is, purportedly. I would simply say that the third function functions as an overseer of your first 2. In other words, it's not sufficient that your tool function validate against itself. That's necessary for it to win on the tool function metric, but for it to win on for you as an individual, it additionally needs to validate on the third function and the 5th. So it's a complicated metric. What's your question up there? Let's see. What sort of movements or gaits would you associate with different types? Are you certain types more naturally agile or possessive of some specific physicality? Probably, but it's not an area where I've done much thinking. So I would guess that SE types have better physicality. I would guess that I'm pretty clumsy and get motion sick and easy and stuff. Would probably something to do with any, but I don't really know the answer to that one. I haven't really thought much about it. I don't use it to type people is why. Because generally when I'm typing people, I'm provided this opportunity to type them purely in a metaphysical landscape. So instead of looking for cues of physicality, I look for the absence of certain functions or the presence of others, and I'm able to do the metaphysical parsing and avoid the physicality aspect and still get it right. Any is clearly just a byproduct of TE, yeah, says an ENTJ. You need a dually to support the weight of the jacuzzi in the truck bed. Oh, is that why? Okay, cool. So if you want to get really, really swank, you get a hot tub going in the back of your dually, and you ride in style, topless, down to the river. They got vodka shots all the way down there. Okay, Fate Wind says, like the NITI loop INFJ talk about. Well, look, there is a way to ideate, for example, with me about my third slot function, FE. And that could take the form of me fretting over and over again about being perceived exactly the right way and the different ways in which I could be misperceived and worrying a lot about that. So if you want to call that a loop, I would call it just a sort of channel of insecurity. And insecurity is cross-typal. It may play out via certain channels more likely with certain people than others, but there's a core issue of insecurity that is non-cognitive function related, which has to do with particularist experience, how secure you feel, and how secure you feel and stuff like that. So you keep talking in until you arrive to some thread, and then you do the conscious effort. That's the best way to you. I mean, I know where I'm going when I come into the typing session for sure. I know which angles I'm going to try, and I'm going to see what's promising as an angle in terms of providing something decisive. Remember, I only need one element that's decisive. I can only need to make a decisive determination of this and not that to begin the process of narrowing down or winnowing down the possible types. And often once I have that, then there's a relational thing that I can test against. So is there an algorithmic process to it? Yes. But is it one that could be taught? Yes. And I could, in theory, write it all out for contingencies that I know how I'm going to account for if I hit them. But being able to remember and articulate all the possible contingencies would be difficult and would make it increasingly less useful as an instruction manual the more detail it gets. So there's so many conditionalities. And I guess if I really spend a lot of time whipping it into as concision-minded a form as possible, I could figure out the principles below cognitive functions above the behavior that would help shed some additional light potentially. But it's a tricky question, especially for somebody who's NI ignoring. You're saying basically, how can I collapse this more? And it's to collapse it more than my successfully typing somebody. Now, here's the thing, though. And this is the crucial difference between me and, say, C.S. Joseph and DSP. If I know about it, I will continue to sit there and talk to you about it indefinitely until you convince me or I convince you. If we have to take a break and come back to it later, fine. I'm not going to charge you more. I want my clients to feel as though they've and I can explain what appear to be contradictions almost every time by a simple point in the simple fact that you're comparing against a type description, not against an actual cognitive function. Remember what a cognitive function is, and remember what these cognitive functions are. And if you disagree with these definitions, I can validate these definitions as being superior to others on a number of different metrics. And if you want an explanation as to why we should prefer your definitions over Hume's definitions, Derek, since he invented the concept, I can answer that question in great detail, as I had to today, because I was challenged in exactly that fashion. And I want to be challenged in that fashion. So that's the main difference. And that's what actual objectivity means, is saying, I want this to be right more than I want it to be, than I want me to be right. And that means if parts of it are wrong and need to be chopped apart, or if the whole thing's wrong and has to be scrapped, and I want someone to defeat it. I think I've got it rock solid at this point. I think it's almost impossible to defeat, which means additionally, I think it's almost impossible for me to be that wrong about somebody's type. And so, I mean, if we disagree, either more information, more process revealing by the individual will show me. I don't know. It would probably link to a failure of SE that impacted your SI in some way that you don't like, and it'd be fixating on that. And keep refining further how it's inconsistent from your view of yourself or something. Just a hypothesis. Is it still frozen? Or is it because I kicked this cord like an idiot? Is it okay now? Okay. Okay, good. I kicked the cord. That's why it froze. Accidentally kicked it. So, yeah, TWFP Raw did get banned for probably mostly for the abuses of people who were there vandalizing it by dropping in copyrighted shit so I'd get dinged all the time. It could be, however, just the frequency of upload or the regularity of it, the automated quality of it. And okay, so Denaza 431 regarding the TI-SI thing, it's I'm just saying I don't know how significant those loops are. I do think there's something like that occurs, but I think people make more of a big deal of it than it is. It just means for a certain stretch of time, maybe fixating on if you were having problems with your SI, it would mean some failure of SE probably caused you to mess up in a way that negatively impacted your SI vision of self and the way that events were supposed to line up to create a singular vision of self consistent with your ego. And then you'd be fixated on the different ways in which that was inconsistent with your ego and kicking yourself for lack of SE in some regard as well. But again, I think the significance of those loops and the grip state and stuff are overstated. People ask me about those things a lot, and I just think, well, it just kind of like, obviously, regular life, if you get wounded, you lick your wounds, and the state of licking your wounds is different than not. Fourth slot grips are probably more valid than 1-3 loops. I mean, I would agree fourth slot grips are more valid than 1-3 loops in the sense that they represent a natural response to licking your wounds. The licking your wounds is going to be a repair state that's distinct from your normal operating state, and is going to have that's going to reflect by have too little of by preferring your dominant. So I would agree that the grip state makes a lot more sense. The loop thing is just, it's not representative of anything except just the fact that sometimes people get fixated on things that are particularly bothersome to them. And that doesn't represent any kind of cognitive function difference, doesn't represent anything that gets by subtypes or anything like that. It just reflects and incorporates the reality that particularist experience can impact how a cognitive function configuration plays out for a limited period of time without changing its fundamental nature. So, can certain function take over, temporarily turn off one or maybe your main one, like bypass? No, I mean, I think just trauma. Trauma can make you go to the alternative to your dominant, which is SI for me. So your fourth slot is always there to kick in alternating relationship with your first. Your first going most of the time with your, and then looking for your fourth to kick in, and it'll kick in something, and then going and kick in. And this switches in terms of prioritization, because like for me, when I'm suddenly traumatized, it's like, okay, possibilities didn't work dramatically. I'm going to the opposite of that, which is look to my existing resources and management of those, and my resources from the past, what I already know, and taking care of myself and all that kind of stuff. So it makes sense as a retreat from your dominant nature to go into its complement that's underutilized. You have an inherent awareness that you're underutilizing that complement because of the fact that you're a dominant user of its complement. So I would say that that's not indicative of anything about functions so much as it is about the human experience, that one retreats from what one is accustomed to if the event that went catastrophically wrong. Being in the grip sounds like a great financial move. Oh, thanks, TJ. My friend is worried her memory won't come back. Why did it go away? I think our brain represses trauma regardless of type. Maybe. I mean, I don't know if I've experienced a whole lot of substantial trauma, but I don't feel as though any of the traumas that I have experienced I've repressed. I think, if anything, I tend to fixate on them. But maybe that's because I'm an SI type. Maybe it's NI types who are said to repress, and what that really means is they just have poor recollection of things from the past. How would fourth slot FE manifest? It manifests as careful. Sorry, a type police video tonight. You'll see an INTP with a very effective and developed fourth slot FE for an INTP. It's still not INFJ style, but it's quite good, and in some ways better than ENTP's fourth slot FE. What if someone is any FE consistently, not a particular response? Well, it's not possible. You can't go any FE, and the reason is because first you're acting, then you're interfacing. Those two need something in between them. The action needs a deliberation function to balance out its level of deliberation. Action being the least deliberative, and deliberation being the most deliberative. Interface requires knowledge because it's responsive directly to the interface system, and it therefore must have knowledge. It can't take any time to deliberate. In other words, the knowledge you have to take in about the systems that you're dealing with or interfacing with is too holistic and complex to be able to deliberate it out. You've got to know it. So Kimberly knows whether something plays well socially or not well before she can explain why it's that case. And that's because she's got an interface function paired with her knowledge function as a dominant, because those two work together, and the alternative wouldn't work. It's not possible to act and interface in conjunction with each other. because the interface function requires knowledge as its complement in order to enable interface at the speed it needs to go with the realities of the system it's interfacing with, which are complex, more complex than any given problem you might deliberate about, which for any TI DOMs, any DOMs with TI can do that TI in real time or faster, provided that real time is how fast people speak and process information. Because in that instance, we only have to be faster than everybody else to be more than real time. See what I'm saying? But yeah, it's not possible to have those two in conjunction with each other because they'd be in constant conflict, and neither of them would be enabled to do or interface because they'd be lacking the deliberation or knowledge component, and it makes no sense. So you got to remember that each of these functions also has a particular value alignment that goes with its slot, and it doesn't make any sense that you would have an instrumental value of interface and a implicit value of action, because if you have an implicit value of action, then you're having to have a complement, right? You're doing, where's the decider? Interface isn't a decider. Sorry to hear about your friend, Sheila. I have a friend going through something similar right now, and it's the absolute worst. I wonder what personality types would experience the greatest discomfort in a totalitarian society. Probably ENTPs, INTPs. Parazoidite is dangerous in video streaming. What's parazoidite? I don't know what that means. Yeah, I don't know any definitions when I Google it. Okay. Let's see. Is there a link between low SI and addictions? Quite possibly, but I will say, Kimberly is not particularly addictive at all. But that doesn't mean she's not habituated to certain things. My friend Dave Porter, he was a alcoholic before he quit. He's an SI Dom. So there's no immunity. It's just that different drugs appeal to people according to different things that they're seeking. I'm seeking SI, so I do a lot of stuff that's SI triggering, like smoking a cigarette, pulling bong rips, drinking a drink, smoking another cigarette, like all those little SI triggering things. But SI DOMs are also prone to value a lot SI stuff because it engages their dominant function. So, both types could get addicted or get into something that makes them feel good on an SI level. My dad was morbidly obsessed. Any type prone to be food addicted? I know you meant that, Sheila. I know you meant... I have no idea if there's a type prone to be food addicted, but I haven't thought about it before. I just had a few Hondas and a Nissan. Did you? Okay, well, I think we should add that to the lyrics somewhere there in guitar. Like, I forget where the lyrics are now. They're way back up here, I guess. I must have missed a lot of stuff. Remember in your eyes, you drove off. During the time in which I knew you, you've had a Honda and a Nissan. I've only had Chevys, GMCs, and Fords.
I thought they were driving a dually.
Well, he's talking about his woman now driving imported cars. 24 HB. There's Hyundai just broke down outside of Topeka or something like that. I'm towing all your asses all around. Okay, so TJ Music says he's supposedly an INFJ. Well, There's only one way. Mm-hmm. Get host Eric to type you. He's the definitive authority on the matter. My favorite car was a 67 Chrysler New Yorker. Wasn't sure if it were car. You didn't get that, TJ Music 24. Sativa or indica? Dolph Derby, bring to the attention of here, yours truly, that he hasn't smoked. Sue working truck. Nice-san means brother in Japanese, really? Makishima means bon appetit. Oh, Miss Kitty friend. It's Officer Pee-Pee. Oh, my pee and my pee and my pee and my pee and my pee. So special, good, and true. I'm getting maddeningly choppy. I'm getting maddeningly choppy with my talking and saddeningly sloppy. Maddeningly choppy, I apologize for that. I'm not kicking them anymore. This is just my internet, probably. Let me pull this bong rip, and that'll usually clear up the internet. Pulling a bong rip does. Okay? Stop kicking the cables. It's another good lyric for a song, though. Stop kicking the cables. You're making me freeze. And Kitty's so angry because her name's PP. There you go, cable kicker. Are you a little cable kicker, PP? Are you? Are you a professional cable kicker? Oh, this is indica. I've got an indica and a hybrid. The Stuck on Stupid is spelled with 2 O's, mind you, not with a U. This is an indica, and the left click, right click, window edit, system edit. I'm not kicking the cables. God, I'm totally not. I'll tell you something. That's a pretty heavy indica there. It moves the mental field west and then east and west again. Paraziodite, clickable and changeable internet. Oh, it is Joey Joe Chabadoo. I just tried the Stuck on Stupid. This time I'm going to demonstrate healthy bong rip of what I prefer. Definitely prefer this Elmer's Glue. It's a Gorilla Glue derivative. It's a hybrid. I guess you'd call it indica heavy, perhaps. But I'm going to transubstantiate this bong. I'm going to try to do a major transubstantiate a chunk of it to all of you here. If you don't want to receive it, you should put your hand like this. It'll block the transubstantiation, okay? So if you don't do that, though, you're going to get high. Just got to warn you. Okay, if you weren't ready for that one and you were driving, you might have crashed because that was a pretty good bong rip, okay? I'm sorry, but I did warn you should have gone like that. It's the only way to guarantee you block it. Well, I mean, I actually prefer the hybrid, though, Dolph, is the point. The indica, I find, but my reason is pretty straightforward. I find the indica here, it is very heavy and stony, and that's good, but I think it's slightly headachy, perhaps, compared to the hybrid, which is not like that at all, and that's why I prefer the Elmer's glue in this instance. Joey Joe Shabadoo says, weed makes me feel not ideal. It's annoying. My mom grows plants in her garden right behind my property. Such a wasted opportunity. I just can't stand the smoke. It gives me the vapors. Well, Joey Shabadoo, I didn't know you're such a fancy lady. You're pretty fancy. I didn't know you talked so fancy. What kind of accent is that anyway? Rhode Island and Delaware regions. That's where we speak like this. Really? Joey Shabadoo? I've never heard anybody from Rhode Island or Delaware talk like that. Or Montana. Montana's not even close to Rhode Island or Delaware. Are you sure? Do you think cigarettes will ever be outlawed, or will we be smoking them in the 2090s like some cyberpunk dystopia? They won't be successfully outlawed. People will still be smoking. There will always be NE-DOMs. Well, there will always be ENTPs who go, I want to try it. For sure. I know I won't get addicted, I'm sure. Whatever, I don't really care anyway. Addicted is so long in the future, like 3 days from now. I don't worry about that. Yeah, they do call Delaware the Fallujah of the East Coast. The problem is, of all American states, you're most likely to die of white phosphorus attack in Delaware. So, apparently it's a goddamn bloodbath over there. First state my ass. I smoked weed once and I was super paranoid and it was a horrible experience. Therefore, weed's been ruined for me never again to the type thing. Jordan Spike, you talk funny too. Are you from the same place that Joe Shabadoo is? No, I'm from Brooklyn, New York. No people from Brooklyn don't talk like that, Jordan Spike. Matthew says, hey, sexies. Hi, Matthew. Did you bring your most sensual moistures today?
Sandy missed you, kiddo.
Yeah, she did. Chula Vista, huh? Chula Vista. That sounds like someplace in Delaware. It's in the Mexican region of Delaware.
Chula Vista.
Delaware is a very small Mexican region called Chula Vista de Delaware. It's like Chula Vista in California, except it's the Delawarean version.
It's so dumb. It sounds like what's the fuck?
Wilmington is the murder capital. Is Wilmington in Delaware? Probably. Burnt tenders are when you get screwed over by a lady. And you get burnt tenders. And someone's like, what's wrong with you? And you're all like, I got burnt tenders.
I can show you a few videos of Eric with burnt tenders. The night after we met.
Matthew, I like her calling you kiddo. I also like you calling her tiger. Okay? So it's fine. It's fine for you, Matthew, to be called kiddo, provided she's okay with you calling her tiger. And I think she'd be a tiger. Isn't that right, Tiger?
Who wants to be champ?
Oh, well, soggy tenders are when your moist tenders, your damp tenders, or your dew-covered tenders get overly soaked. And what's going to happen then is you'll be seeking out more tenderness than is good for you, basically, which is anything more than about 4 milliliters. Do ENTPs make good girlfriends? Yeah, they do. Delilah's an excellent girlfriend because, like all ENTPs are very, and they the best relationship.
Except
They
for
want.
she.
I disagree with you.
I disagree with you.
If she's not, she's an ESTP, but I still think she's an ENTP. Delaware has the classiest, most understated license plate. I'll give it that. Listen, Cosmic Pentastar. I'm going to tell you right now who's got the classiest, most understated license plate. Me. My license plate is looking good, y'all. Well, she might be an ESTP, but yeah, she's pretty ESTP-ish in a lot of ways. Close enough. They're going to be a similar relationship, probably. And that's the thing. I don't think ESTPs are inherently trustworthy in their relationships. You get them educated a bit, and then maybe they're a little older. Delilah was always super relationshipy. So I don't know about that. I think she's an ENTP, probably. I'm trying to get this jewel vape thing for the first time here, like the middle schoolers, feeling like a kiddo. Well, Zandy's clawing your heart out, Matthew, so she's feeling like a tiger. The only other ENFP I've ever known got stabbed in my apartment by a meth dealer.
Sounds accurate.
The only other ENTP I know. Well, yeah, sounds accurate. Sounds accurate. I think that your religious types tend to be probably NIDOMs, INTJs, INFJs, or ANTPs, ENFPs. Of the sensing types, I would suspect it's more likely to be FINI than it is to be FINE. Oh, kitty pants. Oh, kitty pants are so beautiful. You picked the most gorgeous kitty slacks in the whole store. Oh, what a beautiful, beautiful kitty slacks. Well, I mean, the thing is, it wasn't fatal. That, as far as the NGP goes, he's like, see, ain't no big thing. Don't blame the meth. Blame the meth dealer. He's the one who stabbed me. Okay, so I mean, it's going to be attractive to ENTPs for sure. If they do it at some point, they're going to go like, oh, shit, this makes my life a lot better. And I guess it does for a little while, but not for long. And over time, it starts to degrade a person's quality of life. Because I was addicted to it from like 2000-ish to 2004-ish, somewhere in there. So I know what it was like. However, I would say that I reacted less poorly to it than most people, but it still made me kind of squalid, you know. But thank you, Just Me. I appreciate that. I've been working hard to try to get him to sound better, and I appreciate you saying that. So anyway, obviously ENTPs. I think a lot of ENTPs are lost to drugs and alcohol. I was for a long time, but it was alcohol that ultimately got me more than meth. Meth, I had to quit, but it wasn't so difficult. But alcohol gave me a problem. Did it leave any lasting effects? I don't really think so, because, I mean, I need the amphetamines anyway to function normally. Now, meth is a bad way to get those amphetamines, but it's very much the same drug. It's just the problem with it is, if you do meth, you're probably not swallowing little pieces of it every morning and then waiting for the next morning to swallow little pieces of it. You're probably smoking it like I was, or even worse, shooting it or something, or snorting it. But if you were just taking it like Adderall, it would probably act more like Adderall, but nobody takes it like that. So let's see. Yeah, I don't feel as though it damaged me. I think if anything, it accelerated my development, because there's lots of things that I would practice more than I would if I didn't have any kind of amphetamines in me, and including lots of musical stuff and ideational stuff that I'd worked through that I probably wouldn't have worked through otherwise. I did a lot of work on it. I've always done a lot of work on amphetamines and not really screwed around a lot on them. So I still do. And it's just now they're prescription amphetamines, and I take a lot less of them probably than I did when I took meth. I'll quit alcohol once my Guinnesses are gone. Oh shit, I wish I hadn't said that. That's funny, Matthew. That was my very favorite beer, Guinness Stout. The very best. But, you know, ultimately not worth my soul. Oh, you wish your ENTP would have used it for that instead of jacking off compulsively. Well, that's another thing people do. That's a fairly short phase for most ENTPs, I think. At the beginning, maybe you get into that a bit.
God, you even said something to me about that. So it is a thing?
Yeah.
Ew,
but
why?
ENTPs aren't quite as well. They're not as compulsive about it as other types in general. Like,
what is, like, ew, why?
Well, I mean, because at the beginning when you first start doing it, it gets you so just everything is intensified a lot, like including horniness. So I don't know. I lost some weight. But it's awesome. There's much play between the lines, and that's creative moving this whole libido, I think. We laugh over this magic is nothing. Is that a follow-up to a previous comment, or is that you just start with but to be artistic? It's a good, interesting comment. Are you from Canada, Curtis? If there can be introverted and extroverted reorganizations of the functions NETITINE, then there could be still be introvert judgment with extrovert perception in different slots. No, there can't, because extroverted perception and introverted judgment. No, it doesn't work like that. You think a slot is a designated role for a function to play. So if it's a tool function, then it serves a specific role that coordinates with the dominant function. The two work most naturally together in terms of all of your configural permutations. That role is definitive, defined, and distinct from other roles. So it's not possible to have two extroverted functions back to back, because you can't have an extroverted function play a role function for a tool function for another extroverted function. It doesn't logically make any sense. It doesn't definitionally withstand any scrutiny. If you're doing that, then you're not, it's like you're multiplying by zero. You're saying, well, you know, if multiplication's okay, then impossible things are okay. It doesn't work like that. Okay, so
Eric loves butts.
How often do you think mental pathologies are confused with normal thought processes that are just different? I think often. I think most of the disorders fall into that category of things that don't have actual empirical tests for them, that aren't attributable to a specific physical link, but are clusters of symptoms that a professional decides if they qualify as ADHD or not. I think those things are mostly attentional manner realities that have been misascribed the label disorder by way of a general cognitive function bias. Listen, Kimberly, I have got a little piece of medical news for you.
What?
Angantyr tells me that meth makes women horny. Guess what Kimberly's getting for Christmas?
Oh, new boyfriend.
Oh, Kimberly.
Oh, Eric.
Then I lose from it. On top of that, it costs money, so it's ultimately a loss. Eric loves butts. I do like butts, okay.
Better.
I like butts. I'm not saying I don't like butts.
But
How often? Oh, I read that one. Laters. Winky. We talking every day, Matt. Matt, do you start early or do you wait till after 5 p.m.? Ah, Lord, gold. What time's Kim getting for Christmas? Get her some GHB, suggest Desert, INTJ. She's quick-witted, says Sheila W. Yeah, she's a little bit snappy with her sass. That's what we call her, sass snapper. I'm morbidly obsessed with butts. That's a good callback there, Curtis. A timely, well-executed callback. That's some good SE.
I wish you were, Eric.
Ironic metatonia. Hello, all. I believe the first computers was wicks, candles, and paints. Those weren't computers. Wicks, candles, and paints. What do they compute? I can tell if I like butts or not. How do you know? You find a lady, you come and say, take off all of your clothes. You closely examine her bottom and you closely examine her boobs. You say, I think I prefer one or the other of those two.
I'm Eric, and it's boobs.
I do prefer boobs, I would say. As a general rule, but Kimberly's ass speaks volumes for itself.
You're a dick.
Clarence Thomas is here? Wow. Okay, is this the Supreme Court justice or just coincidence that it has the same name? Would insecurity regarding my own creativity suggest a slot in a possibly? Yes, I do call it the insecurity function, the 8th slot function, the function of insecure balance. Curtis looks like he's 45, but he a baby law, 96, 96. Come here, shorty, you was born in 96, 96, 96. That's John Brooks at the club freestyling. Go on, DJ, spin a beat. I'm John Brooks. Hey there, baby, 96. You was 96. Ooh, I like you. You was born in 1996. Yeah, that's smooth. The chicks are all like, I was born in there. How did you know? Oh my gosh, Darlene, did you hear? This guy totally knew we were born in 1996.
Weird.
It's like, you say that randomly and knowing that some of the people in the club were probably that age. Everybody looks to be around that age. You know, this is some dumbass girl comes and was like, oh my God.
You're embarrassing me.
Why only 8 and not some odd number? Well, I guess it's implicit to the way that self-defining agents can interact with an ecosystem and need to interact with an ecosystem to be fully realized as agents as we define agency, or as we understand it, or as we experience it. Curtis in your ass and round the corner. Round the corner. Round the corner. That's part of John's rap at the party, at the club, at the rave. Part party, one part club, one part rave, and one part bar mitzvah. Who wants in? Have I ever watched Game of Thrones? No, I have not. I have not watched it, but I've heard a lot about it on television and such, and on the internet. People seem to be quite fond of it. It's like the new Breaking Bad. They call me millennial times 2. If you cut my age in half, then I make 2 millennials. So I could be a millennial too. But then I have to both of me have to be millennials. If one of me is a millennial, they both have to be, because I'm not old enough to be a millennial and Gen X. Unless I don't have to subtract it from the total. Who do you think's generation has a cooler name? Is Gen X just presumptuous and what's the word? Pretentious? Or is millennial just kind of damp? What? Cosmic Pinchstar? Generations aren't a real thing? You mean I can't dig one up in the ground someplace like an ore? So when are you considered to be the greatest generation? Did have the greatest name. That's true. Gen X is a pretty cool name. I think it's pretty cool. As generation reputations go, I think it's got a pretty cool reputation. But I think it's a fairly disaffected group of people, actually. A fairly disconnected group. Unlike millennials who seem to identify with each other.
Is baby boomers part of that?
Baby boomers are older than us, Kim.
Right, but is that part of what you would that be a definition of that generation?
Well, I mean, the baby boomers proper are the ones that were born, like my parents are a generation older than that.
Right. Well, what would you call that one? Depression era?
I mean, maybe. Yeah, Depression era, probably. My parents were born in the mid-30s, so...
It's the Depression era, and then what I'm saying is their children would be the baby boomers. And then what are we?
We're Gen X.
Okay, so baby boomers, Gen X.
Then Gen Y, then millennials, then...
So
I don't know what they
would be
call
the
a post...
30-year-old.
What do they call post-millennials?
So Gen
I
Y
think
is
Gen Y is like 30 to 40. And do they call post-millennials Z? Okay. So it's weird. It goes Y, millennials, Z. There was no before X. What would be before X? Being around people brings, as you'd call it, great unhappiness. Actually, detest having to converse with certain people and strangers in general. Chances are I'll just be annoyed. Met any ENTP. What does that mean? Met any ENTP? I think there might be like a typo or something there. Can you clarify? Bone is right. Gen Y is millennial, I think. Oh, really? Gen Y equals millennials? Okay, fine. So they're calling the newest generation iGen, internet generation. Okay. Well, and how old are they? Books is front and yo. I know Brooks is fronting. I'm well aware of Brooks's fronty ways. You know, he can front in various capacities, in various relational channels. Annetta guesses she's a millennial. You guessed wrong. Okay, I'm demoting you. You're iGen. You go all the way down to iGen right now. You know what? You're pre 2 years old right now. How do you like that? Say you were born in '89. That's when I graduated from high school. In a rural area. When your parents were almost 40 when they had you. Secondly, I'm a millennial, but I didn't know what a scroll bar was before I was 9. 1990 would put you at 20 years old in 2010 and 30 years old in 2020. So you're a millennial for sure. You're 28 or something. That's a millennial. And Amy, my home movies appear to be from the late 70s. Any my home movies. Pre-2. Yes, you're pre-2. You can barely even type anymore. I'm surprised you're doing as well as you are. You're a savant. I mean, a prodigy, not a savant. Your apocalypses, Jen. Do we have an apocalypse, Jen? I didn't know that. Gen Y or millennials. Thank you for clarifying. He's 29 or 30. Millennial-ish. I'm Gen Z now that I vape. Congratulations, Matthew. That's an accomplishment. What time it is? Oh, it's 10 o'clock already? Oh, it's been going for 2 hours. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this up here in the next 5 minutes. Just smoke the cigarette, give people a chance to say their final goodbyes to people.
Silent generation is what your parents were born in.
The silent generation for my parents? Is what they're called?
It's interesting.
They weren't old enough. I mean, they weren't actually before the greatest generation. They weren't old enough to be in the greatest generation. They were the kids of that. They were little kids, and their parents were fighting in the wars. They were like 12 or something when the war was happening, you know? In World War II. All right, Jess, thank you. Good night. Sleep tight as well for you. Remember the resolution we determined regarding the biting of the bed bugs, which is do not allow them to do it. Can't be repeated frequently enough. For those of you who are lenient with your bed bugs, you run contraindicative to the desired.
Do not forget to eat your cheese before bedtime.
Thank you, Kimberly. I'm not the only one here parenting. I'm glad to see. Matthew gets parented by Zandy, who calls him Kiddo. By Kimberly, who reminds him to eat cheese. And, of course, by me, who says, every night when I tuck him into bed, I say, sport.
I want to thank Sheila again for our very, very sweet gift.
You dream winning dreams tonight, champ. And he goes, okay, and snuggles off.
Subscribe to Talking with Famous People. You can get a typing for $100 US. T-shirts are on the way very soon. And also, don't forget to subscribe to Curtis's channel.
Listen, I want to talk about Bob Robertson's important observation that quinceañeras, well, he says they're the worst, but what I want to say is I like to convert in some fashion all holidays that are celebrated by either God's Big Heaven Church or the Yaylorian Church into some sort of, let's call it, mutant form of a quinceañera. So you retain many of the elements of the quinceañera without having to actually be 15-year-old. So Christmas Day will be exercised in a quinceañera-esque fashion. Halloween, quinceañera, and again.
Sheila, I tried putting it on her today. In fact, I did put it on her today, and she ran like hell all through the yard. And she doesn't usually run.
She's not fond of it. Put it this way. She's acquiring the taste still.
I will get her used to it.
She's still acquiring the taste. for the outfit. It may be that she doesn't like the way the green conflicts against her red feathers, but I think that just she has bad taste. So don't worry about it. She will get used to it, I'm sure. Okay, so we're gonna wrap it up here. Thanks a lot for being here.
Good night, y'all.
Good night. Wait, I have to push this other thing. End stream.